Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Mindfulness Podcast with me, your host, Sandy Powell.
Welcome to today's episode. Our guest today is Bonnie-Lea Elizabeth. She's a self-expression and embodiment coach who is devoted to helping women liberate their inner leader and live their life in full authenticity. Welcome, Bonnie-Lea.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's so wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. Could you tell us a bit more about how did you, what do you do and how did you get to do it?
Yeah, definitely. How did I get to do it? It's such an interesting question because I feel like all of our life experiences lead us somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Some are
definitely.
more pertinent to leading us to where we are right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I work with women to help them embrace their full expression. That's predominantly the center of my message, helping them to be able to step into the fullness of who they are. In alignment with my own personal journey, I realized that I wasn't even looking at all of the parts of me. Like there was parts of me that I was hiding from. There was parts of me that I was scared to look at. And so through that experience of actually looking inside and realizing how much I needed to integrate of myself, I saw that I had so much more potential than what I actually had. And it was a really empowering experience to integrate those parts that I was scared of and integrate those parts that were painful and come out the other side in my full expression. And just the way my life's changed so much since then, I've really felt that calling to help women have a similar transformation because there's so many different versions of authenticity in the world that women can express. And it can be quite difficult for us to fully accept ourselves. It's quite difficult to have a lot of self-love or feel worthy of living a life that's fully expressed. So that's why my mission is to help women liberate their inner leaders and be able to, come into this world, create the life they truly desire and be that fullness, that juiciness of who they are.
Nice. Yes. That's very nice. Very nice. We definitely need more of that, right? Step up more and help others, yes. Create the life that they really truly want.
Definitely.
Fullness and with everything they've got. Yes. And so many people, yeah, they don't even know their full power themselves, right? Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And it was so interesting because I remember thinking many years ago that I was already really powerful and I was already, quite confident and leading my life in a specific direction. But I didn't realize how off track I actually was in terms of what was truly aligned with my soul. And I
Mhm.
thought I was, confidently boss babe heading over here. But actually, when I started unpacking all of those parts of me, I was like, oh, wow, my desires are actually over here. And that's my true authentic path. So, yeah, we don't know because we're caught in all of this societal conditioning, all of this programming, all these unhelpful ways of thinking that we've just been conditioned to believe for so long. And yeah, you really, once you start unpacking, there's a lot there.
Right? Oh yes. That was the same for me. Like I always thought, oh, I've got this and I'm going confidently into my direction. And then later, looking back at it now, I'm just realizing how far I was just kind of following, like you said, the society norms and just kind of continuing, the next logical step basically until I was like, this, it just doesn't feel like I'm achieving this and I'm going here and I should feel like, so awesome. I've worked so hard to get here. And then I'm like, why am I not feeling, yay?
That is such a big one, isn't it? That I've
Yeah.
worked so hard to get here. And I think that's such a big one to wrestle with because it's like, so what are you trying to tell me? All of this was for nothing? Like I've worked so hard and I've done all of the right things. So why am I not feeling this empowered, awesome reward for pushing myself so hard and getting to this point?
Right. Yes. Well, it's very interesting how far you're willing to go before you stop, right? Like yeah, like sometimes we're making it faster and faster and faster and trying to push instead of taking that step back and really looking, is this really truly what I want,
Mm.
what I need, right? Instead of pushing so hard and uh, there's the society is very into pushing and you have to grind and you have to make it work and nothing is
Definitely.
easy and things like that. And while there is of course hard work involved with everything you do, like you have to overcome struggles and when you learn something new and things like that, but like it does not need to be like this grinding painful struggle where you hate yourself and you're like barely making it through. It could also be more of an excitement, right? Like once you step more into that aligned version of yourself and you follow those dreams that you're really, really after, like that struggle is more excitement than dread. And it becomes more of a fun journey because you're falling in love with it because you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing it and you're looking forward to that result, like it's not that struggle anymore that you're like grinding, that you're like, oh, I have to get up. I have to do this because of XYZ. No, it's like you're getting
Yeah.
up, you're like, I get to do this. I'm getting closer and closer to the vision that I hold for myself, and I'm excited to do it. And even if there is a struggle or a setback or failure or whatever, I'm taking it because it makes me stronger and I'm still going towards that.
Yeah, I totally align with what you're saying there. And I feel like that was the difference between being in my masculine energy and realizing at that point, years ago where I wasn't in alignment with my true desires, that I'd been in my masculine and been in survival mode for so many years that I didn't even recognize. And so when I started to integrate my feminine essence in, and that's when it sort of was able to shift into the ways that you were saying, because I'd moved more into receivership, into ease, into flow, into allowing these pieces to come together instead of that pushing and fighting and all of those things. And the masculine definitely has a valued place in the way that we can structure things, we can have, the discipline, but it's not, I guess, obviously everyone has masculine and feminine in them, and the percentage of which way we sway is different for everyone. But I noticed to me that when I moved more into my feminine essence and I was able to manifest things more easily, I was able to go at a pace that felt more aligned, and then more things came in quicker as well. Like I've heard that saying, to slow down is to speed up. And I think that that's so true for women because we are going against our nature in a lot of ways. If we're not naturally masculine and we're in that masculine energy, then it can be quite draining on our systems. And there is another way to do it, really.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's all in the balance, right? And
Yeah,
balance
balance.
looks different for everybody else, for anyone, right? Like for me, it looks different than for you. So really listening to yourself, tuning inwards and finding like what works for you, how do you function best, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that can be a lot of trial and error, right? And a lot of rewiring of those patterns that we'd picked up for many years. Because I'm not sure how adept your listeners are in terms of neuroscience, but I'm sure these days everyone's heard of, at the ages of 0 to 7, it's when you're programmed, all of your patterns will come in to your brain, and then that's how you'll live unless you consciously change them for later down the road. But yeah, so you've got to take that conscious effort to actually be like, thank you for this way of being at this point in time. I appreciate all you've done for me to keep me safe, but I don't need you anymore. And then rework that into a new way of being. And that can take a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to actually commit to doing something new, because it's really hard for our brains to start to wire a new pathway that's been different to something that's already been wired for so long.
Right.
It takes a lot of courage.
Right. Yeah, that it's important. It's really important to get started and yeah, look at those beliefs, look at those old patterns to see what's there and to really get to shifting because we never know how much time we have on this earth. So we want to live it to our full potential and we want to live it as happy and healthy as we can. So less struggle and more flow and balance.
Yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree.
Yeah. So is there like, would you say that was like a big challenge or something that was a big challenge in your life, but that you now, when you look back at it, like you would say it's a blessing?
Yeah, definitely. My relationship with my ex-partner was not very easeful. It was quite a toxic relationship, which I did not realize for a very long time. And I was stuck in it essentially. And that relationship was something that went, it was a long-term relationship. And I remember wanting to end the relationship quite a lot because it wasn't making me happy. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I felt stressed a lot of the time, and I felt like I was just stuck in this situation and I didn't know how to get myself out of it. And I remember one day when I was at my ex-partner's house and I wanted to have a conversation with him to let him know how unhappy I was. And so I'd gone to the bathroom and I was in the bathroom, sort of giving myself a pep talk, trying to get that, positive self-talk happening. Like, I can do it this time. Like, it's going to be like different. Because I tried to talk to him about our relationship quite a few times, but I wasn't ever really able to get through to him. It just was always felt like he could never hear me. Like, I never felt understood. And so I left the bathroom and I walked down the hallway into his room and I was sitting on the edge of his bed and I'm just thinking, yes, like I can do this, I can do this. And when I walked in, he didn't really pay me any attention. And I was looking out the window and I could see the blue skies and the sunshine. And I just thought it was such a contrast to how I was feeling inside because I felt all this anxiety, all this trapped energy. And the sunshine was so beautiful out there and I just felt like I was in this cage. And so I finally began to speak to him and I started the conversation like, I need to talk to you about our relationship. Like, I'm not happy. There's things that I would like to work through. And it wasn't very long until he was shutting me down again and, accusing me of causing a fight or something similar. And so instead of standing my ground and actually following through with the conversation, no matter what, I swept it back under the rug and I allowed it to be okay, even though it wasn't okay. And that was a massive pattern of mine, was to be in this people pleasing tendencies. I was so afraid to be vulnerable and I was so afraid to actually speak my truth. And even though I knew in my heart, in my whole entire body, that this relationship was not right for me, I couldn't bring myself to actually have that conversation and end it no matter what the outcome was, because there was so much terror in my body whenever I thought about or tried to be vulnerable. And so I realized that I had this massive issue with vulnerability. And it became even more clear to me when we were in 2020 and obviously COVID was happening and everything was moving online. We weren't hanging out in person as much. And my friends and I, who I was good friends with, decided to start a women's circle once a month on the full moon. And this was a beautiful, safe space filled with women that I knew or knew through friends. And there was a lot of positive, safe energy in there. And we took it in turns to go around the circle to speak, as you normally do in a women's circle. And when it became my turn to speak, I was in this safe environment. And even though all the women were holding me and I knew that I could speak freely, I knew there was no repercussions, I still felt that absolute fear in my body of being vulnerable and speaking. My cheeks felt so hot and I was shaking. And when I was talking, I just felt like my words were coming out like mumble jumble, like was I even making sense? And then I was off on a kind of a roll because I just had to get it out. I didn't really know how to pace the words at that point, and I was just feeling so overwhelmed and like so much terror in my body of being vulnerable. And that's when it really brought it home to me that, like, wow, even in a safe space with women who I care about and who I know care for me and love me, I can't be vulnerable in this space. I was like, I've got some work to do on this, because if I want to live my life truly in alignment with who I am, I need to be able to communicate who I am to the world. And I really believe that if you can't be vulnerable, even within yourself, then you'll never know your true potential.
Right.
Well, that's where my journey sort of came, and I started to unpack, as I was saying earlier, all those pieces of me, and learning how to be vulnerable within myself first, and look at the parts that were terrifying, and look at the parts that, you know, my inner child had wounding, and look at all those parts and really integrate them, heal them, and then be able to step into the fullness of who I am. And that brought so much courage and so much confidence and so much energy into my life that I just didn't have before. And that's looking back on it now, that relationship was a very interesting time period. And you know, although I wanted to leave it so many times before I actually ended up doing so in the end, it's actually been a massive blessing, because it was so much of a needed path for me to be on, to realize that I wasn't even in my full potential. I wasn't in my full power as the woman that I'm here to be.
Right. It was a blessing in terms of, yeah, it shed a light of where you really need to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. How did you go about changing that? Did you find, like, you know, did you do like therapy? Did you find a coach yourself? Did you,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely. So I've always had the desire to run my own business ever since I was young. Even when I was like I think 4 or 5, I used to draw, um, you know, just like whatever artwork I was drawing. And then I set up a board, pinned all my artworks to the board. And then when my family came over for like a Sunday lunch or whatever, I'd have little stickers on them, like $1, $2, and like try and sell them my artwork to my family, even though I was so young. So like I feel like entrepreneurship is in my blood. And I think one of the blessings of going through all of the trainings that I started to do, my spiritual psychic development, Reiki, energy healing, you know, when I started to study my neuro coaching, it was just a fantastic way for me to realize, oh, hey, like these tools are fantastic and I can work with these on myself as well as with others. But I think it was the way that the layers of how I went through my trainings, doing the spiritual psychic mediumship development first, because that really allowed me to tap into my intuition and actually have that connection to spirit, connection to my guides and the divine. And so that was really comforting, because then I felt like I've got a stronger connection with who I am, with my intuition. Okay, that's fantastic. And then moving into the energy healing, that was really beautiful, because like when I was struggling with the people pleasing, or when I was struggling with anxiety or anything like that, I could do Reiki on myself. And so Reiki was a really powerful tool for me to help clear my energetic body and to help really harmonize how I was feeling, and reduce the cortisol, reduce that anxiousness, and return myself back to a grounded state. And then moving into when I studied the neuro coaching, well, that just blew my mind essentially, because it was just so fascinating working with the brain in this specific way, but then also because it's a transformational coaching program, I was getting to, in the sessions that you do, you know, you coach each other as you go through your training. And so I would be like, well, this is a brilliant opportunity for me to just bring whatever I have that I want to work through. And it's also validating to me that, hey, this actually works. If I'm getting coached by a neuro coach and I'm having these transformational results, well, then that's showing me that this is actually worthwhile, and that other people, when I'm out there coaching later down the track, will also be able to get transformational results from the way that it's structured, and the coaching conversations and beautiful questions and the neuroscience background, which I love. So I think a lot of the healing happened as I was going through the process of learning all the different tools that I'd want to bring into my business.
Mm.
And the more I was able to work with those tools and work with others and get coached as well, I was able to actually, like pick out what was going on in my brain, pick out what was the conditioning, get rid of the pieces that weren't serving me anymore, set up new ways of being, and also work with the energetic modalities to really center my body, replenish my energy sources. And that was quite transformational for the first time in my life to really have such a big healing, holistic way of looking at it. And that's why I love working with my clients in that way of having all these different modalities that I work with, because it's so powerful. You can work with the energy of it, but you can work with the brain, but you can, have a Reiki session, and that's really calming and doing all this under the surface work. But then there's EFT, which helps to reduce cortisol, and you can use that every day as a tool. So it's just, yeah, all those tools that I learned while I was doing my setup of the business, I think they were the most helpful for me, as well as the women's circle, to be honest. Once I had started to realize I had an issue with vulnerability, and I consciously decided this is a safe space, like physically, that's the reality, it is a safe space. And so I devoted to sharing each women's circle we had each month. And so through that practice of sharing and getting used to being vulnerable, I was rewiring my nervous system around that as well. And that's why I include women's circles in my Path program, because I found it's such a transformative way to start to learn to express yourself again. If you haven't been someone who's able to really use your voice, or you've had different situations where you've been shut down, or, you don't know, the confidence isn't there, then being in that sacred, safe women's circle space, it's just so beautiful to watch people as they go through the program actually start to be able to talk more and, share more about what's on their mind and relearn how to do that, because that was the experience that I had over the space of the time I was in the circles.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, finding your tribe, finding someone that you can open up with. Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. It's so much harder when you feel like you're all alone in this, and you don't know like a way out. But yeah, having someone that you connect with and just kind of like, I've been there, or just knowing that there's someone there to listen that will not judge you or shut you down. Like you said, that's important. Yeah, because there's so many people out there, right? They put their own stuff on top, and they're like, well, why don't you just leave, and why don't you just do, and right? Instead of just kind of like listening and holding that space so you can unpack and you can get to the answer that you need, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that is so important, I think, what you're saying there about people putting their own things on top, because two things, they only know what you've told them, and that's not even the whole truth. So like the context isn't there. And it's so much easier to say than do if you're talking about leaving a relationship that's not serving you, or that's toxic or something like that. But my partner actually said something wise the other day that was, and I just want to get this right because it's a bit of a riddle in a way. Questions answered that are unasked go unheard. So if the person's not actually asked you for that advice, but you're giving it to them, they're not going to hear it. So yeah, it's important to have that safe space for someone to be able to actually open up when they're ready and speak in a way that's going to be serving to them. And the other person's job is just to receive and hold space. And if they want advice at the end, they can request it.
Right. Yes. That's something. Yes. A lot of people listen to reply, right? They're really just waiting for their turn so they can finally spill. Whereas, right, the true power is really to listen, to just truly be there, fully present, and just kind of receiving without the ever urge to, but I want to interject. I want to say something. No, like really just let that person, have their turn and really see them in their full, with all the feelings, everything. Just kind of see where it goes, right? Just be fully present.
Yeah, definitely.
Really hard.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say we're not really trained to listen with the heart, to really listen, just listen. We're really more like, yeah.
That's actually funny that you said that, because that's literally what I was about to say. I said it's not common in our society. Like, people often are competing to have their voices I don't know if it's heard, it is heard in some ways, but also like in social circumstances, I think like I've observed people where someone's talking and then someone else starts talking and then someone else starts talking and someone's talking. I'm like, are you guys even like, does anyone even like, is anyone conscious in this conversation, or is everyone just saying what they think? And it's quite interesting. I know I did a retreat recently in Thailand with Evolving Eros, and it was one of the exercises that we did that was really beautiful was one person they'd have an inner circle and an outer circle, and the people in the middle were just holding space and witnessing, and that's all they did. There was no conversation, there was no questions or prompts or anything. So they just held the space, witnessed, and watched while the other people on the outside went through a range of different emotions. And so it was such a beautiful thing to be held as I experienced what sadness felt like in my body, or I experienced what grief felt like in my body, or what pleasure felt like in my body. And to just have someone who was just witnessing you, like it's such a powerful tool, that witnessing piece. And I've integrated that into my Embrace Your Full Expression workshop with some partner work, because I think that that's also quite powerful in healing that relationship with vulnerability. Is if you've not been listened to or heard before, it can be such a life-changing experience to have someone to just hold space for you as you state a boundary or you state something that you have an intention about, and you're just held and just listened to. Like, it's incredible to have that experience. I've had that experience and I thought, whoa, this is very different in my body. Like, I actually feel safe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also powerful to not shoo the negative feelings away, right? A lot of times, like we feel sadness or grief, and then we're like, quickly, oh, let's distract ourselves, and oh, that's not a good feeling. Let's go. Let's, I don't know, do something else, right? Instead of really like feeling into it and really allowing it without judgment, like really staying there for a moment and, hey, why am I sad? Why do I feel this grief? Where is it coming from? And really, right, processing it, not just judging it and be like, no, 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 that's not a nice one. No, I don't want that. Because it's just going to come back eventually, right? Because you haven't dealt with whatever the underlying issue was. So it's going to come back. So always kind of, yeah, holding that space and really, yeah, taking count of like what's going on and why is it there? Like I see so many people, yeah, just kind of putting band-aids over and push, push, push. No, 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 no. Instead of really just it's okay. It's okay. It's not really a negative feeling. It's just a connotation that society puts on it, you know? It's grief, you know, like it's true, it's real. Like, why would you, you know, like it's just an emotion. It's something that you feel and it's valid because you're feeling it right there. So why not take that all on and be like, okay, I am, you know, feeling it truly. I find that so important, right? To feel with all of our emotions, because only once we are in alignment, that's part of it, right? Feeling the full range of emotions. Nothing is wrong, nothing is bad, nothing needs to be shooed away, but really just staying with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there. It is such a common practice, I think. And it's actually funny if you think about the pace of society as well, because it's almost like, oh, I'm too busy for these emotions. I'm too busy to feel sad. Like, if I'm sad, that's going to take how long? I've got meetings. I can't be sad today. Like, you know, so on that, like, rat race almost, that emotions, I mean, yeah, they can be feared as well, because if we're not feeling safe in our body to begin with, like feeling intense emotions can be really overwhelming for the nervous system. So I think that's also one of the components. But yeah, I think it's just an interesting perspective that people have on emotions these days as well. Like, there is a lot of healthy perspectives, but what I was saying before about not having time, it's kind of like, well, if I'm grieving, I know I need to grieve, that's fine, but I'm frustrated because I'm still grieving. Like, how long is this going to take? Like, it's a natural process. It's going to take how long it takes, and it's different for everyone. And I think if we do try and, as you said, put all these band-aids on it, it's not actually allowing the energy to clear from our bodies, because emotion is energy in motion, and it's just going to get stuck in your energetic system, and it's going to cause you to be sluggish and disharmony in the system. And it'll come back even twice as strong every time you ignore it. So it's so important to sit with yourself and be gentle with yourself, have self-compassion when you're feeling a certain way and just allowing it to be. And there's also tools that you can use like EFT or somatic practices to allow the emotion to move through you more. So you're not just, I guess, getting stuck in it in a certain expression. One of the tools I really like to use is embodied intuitive movement. So if I'm feeling something in my body, then I'll allow my body to move me. You know, I'll stand up, sometimes with music, sometimes without. If you are feeling a certain emotion, you could put on a track that's quite similar to the way that that emotion is, and then allow your body to be moved like by how it actually wants to move. It's not a dance. You're not consciously thinking about it, just expressing the emotion, because realistically, emotions are only meant to last, I think it was something like 7 or 8 seconds in your body. And then it just comes through. And then if we're in the wild, like you look at an animal, like they'll shake and then they're done. They'll move on. Like, but we hold on to our emotions these days. We hold on to them so tightly. We don't want to deal with it. And so it actually stays a lot longer than what it's meant to in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Expressing it in some shape or form. Yeah. Write it out, move. Yeah. I like to walk when I have something bothering me or something. It always helps me, yeah, to move, to walk. Also, when I have a difficult conversation, I used to walk. It would help me, you know, get my words out, get myself focused more somehow. These days I can do it without, but I remember in the beginning it was quite helpful. I used to take my husband on walks. We have to talk about something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my partner and I sometimes go for a walk as well if we're having a chat and we realize that we're sort of reaching an impasse and we're like, okay, like we need to change the scenery, we need to get the energy moving. Like, why don't we go for a walk and then we'll keep chatting and see what happens. It's always such a good way to not get stuck, I think, in conversations when they can be difficult.
Yeah, yeah, I found that as well. Definitely. Yeah, it helps to kind of, yeah, just kind of keep it flowy, keep it moving. It kind of, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of seems more at ease too than when you're just like staring and kind of like, I need to have this tough conversation. You know, I feel like the walking kind of, yeah, gives it a bit more of a flow, a bit releases some of the tension. Nobody is just like staring at you because you're also like walking, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that creativity is actually born out of exercise as well. So like going for a walk can help stimulate creativity, which is then, you know, obviously helpful if you're trying to solve a problem. And something about like that forward movement, like when you're walking, you're going forward, like you're walking in the forward direction. Therefore, it kind of feels like your conversation, your relationship, like it's going forward anyway. So yeah, I totally align with what you're saying.
Yes, it's definitely helpful. It's not just me then. Good.
Definitely not.
Oh, that's so good. Well, you were also talking about that authenticity piece, and I wanted to know, like, how does it, what does authenticity look like, and how do you implement it in your life? Like, how does that express itself, you know?
Definitely. It's a beautiful question. I think one of the ways that authenticity comes into my life is just being in alignment with what is my desires and what is my soul's purpose and what is my intuition saying, and choosing that over and over again as opposed to choosing fear or doubt or, you know, something that I feel like I should be doing based on that. And so I'm living then in alignment with my heart and I'm living in alignment with what my desires are. And then that's a way that I know that I am living authentically. I think it's also a lot about having the courage and the confidence to go against what someone else might say is the right way to do something, even as simple as like dressing. Like I had a very corporate job many years ago and, you know, I was like this was who I was when I was here, but when I was outside of that job, I was totally different. And, so it was kind of like, but I couldn't let those worlds intercross because I didn't want my corporate people to think like I wore crazy colors and I like to dance in the bush and I like to do all these things because they would have this negative opinion of me. And so that's not really authentic living. And so I worked a really long to unpick all of that and go, well, then that job's not right for me because I can't be my authentic self. And so I'm going to move somewhere else that's going to allow me to be all of who I am. And another reason why I think, yeah, like a good way to start, even if you're feeling like it's a bit difficult to get in touch with your authenticity, is to have some quiet time listening to your higher mind, your intuition, or even your body. I do a lot of work with my clients around getting in touch with your innate wisdom and starting to listen to what your body actually needs as well. Because, and I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier about, kind of pushing and fighting to get to the goal and, going in this hustle way. But like our body might actually be like screaming out at us for rest. And if we rest now and we get a really great creative idea and then we implement that creative idea, we could have just saved ourselves like 3 days of hustle because we actually rested. And so getting in touch with your innate wisdom and your body is an easeful way that you can actually start to integrate that authentic thinking, because then you're choosing different every time, something that's authentic versus something that feels like I should be doing it. And then it's like a muscle. The more you listen to your intuition, the more you listen to your body, the more they communicates with you and the more that you can hear the messages, because you start to listen and know, oh, well, that sounds like fear, that energy is constricting, or that sounds expansive. I think that's my higher self. And you can start to discern which one is actually which.
Mm.
So I feel like that's a good place to start. And I mean, self-expression in terms of the way that you dress, the way you do your hair, like if you want to wear makeup or not, how you want to adorn your body. Like I always find that's a super fun way for people to start to actually get in touch with their expression as like a creative expression of who they are inside on the outside. And yeah, that can actually also bring up a lot of patterns or limiting beliefs that you didn't even know you had, because maybe you've been dressing a certain way all your life, but you think, I really actually want to wear like this color instead. And like someone told me years ago that this color wasn't good and it was bad and blah, blah, blah. But I actually really love it. Like I really love this color. I'm just going to wear it. And then you can see what your thoughts are doing. That, oh, okay, so I've got some issues over here. I need to work through that because I know this feels right for me, but like my, little human ego mind is telling me all these other stories. So let's try and just make peace with it and say thank you, but I no longer need you.
Yeah, sometimes it's so funny how it's the little things, right? Like really, yeah. Like someone said something and yeah, I don't look good in this shirt and I don't and before you know it, yeah, like I actually had that happen at some point too. I was like wearing my like favorite outfit and I was like, woohoo! And then someone was just like, ugh, oh, and like it ruined it forever. I actually let them ruin it. And I'm like, oh my God, it was my favorite thing and stuff. Now I'm looking back at it and I'm like, really? Like, take that back. Like, don't let that person ruin your group, your power. But back
Yeah.
then, yes, back then, yeah, that totally got me out as well.
Yeah, it can have such a different effect, can't it? Like I know someone in my life had told me that like red and black were like bad colors and they're evil and you don't want to wear them. And like, red is angry and red is this. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to wear red then because you don't like red. And then I love red. Like I love wearing red. I love wearing black. I feel powerful in it. Like I feel, and it's actually so ironic now that I'm saying that because yeah, right. That was my previous partner who told me that. And it's funny because I wonder if he had the inkling that I felt powerful in these colors, but he was trying to make me small. So then by saying these colors weren't good, I couldn't be in my, full power energy.
Right.
But yes, working through wearing red again, which I actually love so much. I think, it's so powerful to dress in a way that makes you feel empowered and confident and strong and whatever else you're wanting to like embody.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry you had that experience though of that person in your favorite outfit.
There's also others, right? There's also days where I feel like, oh, I'm just throwing something on, and then there's this person
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you look like you're on fire. You look so good. And then you're like, "Ooh, wow, I wasn't even trying. Thank you,
Yeah.
right?" And the whole day is like, ooh, nice. That's why it's
Yeah,
so important to
definitely.
be supported, right? To be around your tribe, because whenever
Mm,
you're feeling a little, right? They're like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, girl, you're going for it. Don't let it stop you. You've got this. You've got this far. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh,
Yes.
remind me of my true self. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we do,
Mm,
yeah, have a low day or a low week. Something happens, shakes us around, right? So having those people around to remind us of our true power, of our, yeah, of all
mm.
the things we've already accomplished. It's very powerful.
Yeah, I love that energy, and community is so important. And we're tribal creatures, community-based creatures anyway, humans. That's how we were evolving. And interesting, this digital age. I mean, fantastic the fact that you're over the other side of the world and I can have a podcast episode being recorded with you. And I'm so grateful for all of that. But I think it's must be so difficult for the younger generations with I mean, growing up, I had the experience of no technology to technology. And so I still have the roots of, you know,
Right.
human experience and being out playing in the paddock and all of that. And I hope that the younger generations are able to keep those connections with each other in 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 the same way because it is important. And yeah, tribe is everything.
Right. Yeah. But like you said, we can have it in different forms. I actually do have, yeah, a lot of my
So,
good friends these days are all over the world. And yeah, it's good to know they're just a text, a message away, or a Zoom call, a phone call away. And you can see each other, right? Not like in the olden days. So it's definitely helpful. But yes, of course, human contact, a hug, an embrace, right? That walk
yeah,
together. Also is very powerful, and yes, not to be
yeah,
underestimated, of
definitely.
course.
It's good we can experience it in different ways, that's for sure. I love the fact that with technology you can do that. And I've got a friend who's living in Spain at the moment and she's been there for 6 months and we've had multiple Zoom chats and send each other voices and I don't feel like she's so far away from me when we're talking on that. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, very powerful in keeping that connection. That's true.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. So if someone would like to connect with you, what would be the best way?
Yeah, fantastic. So I am over on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, I would say. And so my Instagram handle is goddessawakened.co. My website at the moment is bonnieleaelizabeth.com. I'm in the process of I've rebranded my business to Goddess Awakened because I had that download last week and it's feeling like such a level up in terms of the frequency and in terms of the mission that I have for the world. So my website will be goddessawaken.co, but at the moment you can just head to the link in my bio on my Instagram and you'll be able to see my current website, which has got all my offerings and a little bit more about me. And if you want to get in contact as well, then that's there.
Wonderful. That's very nice. Thank you so very much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, thank you,
So much
Sandy.
fun.
It's been absolutely wonderful. I've loved it.
Yes, me too. Me too. So powerful. Lots of good thoughts and ideas. Good value for our listeners, I hope.
Yeah, definitely. We went deep, didn't we?
Yes, yes, and that's good. Sharing from the
Love-
heart. That's where it's
Yeah,
at.
get that vulnerability happening.
Exactly.